Hey guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing my favorite characters of 2020. So for me, characters are what makes me love to read. I love plot for sure, and it definitely has its place. There are some books I love where it has more plot than character development, and I still love it. But the books that really get to my heart, that really make me think, tend to have really strong characters and very dynamic casts as well. And so I really love making this video every year, discussing the characters I met throughout the year that I really loved. Not every book that is mentioned in this video is necessarily a favorite book of the year, however, some of them are, and you'll see that in my next video. That will be my favorite books of 2020. But there are some books where I didn't necessarily love the book as a whole, but there are specific characters that really stand out to me. So I really want to go over those. I have 10 of them, which is a nice round number. I will be going through them just chronologically as I read them through the year. So not like ranked or anything, it's nothing like that, but we're just gonna go through them and explain why I love them so much. Okay, so up first we have Margaret Schlegel from Howards End by Ian Forster. I love Margaret so much. I just find her very wise. She is this character who, she knows when to speak up and she knows when to keep quiet and is very wise about it. She's not always perfect at that. There are some moments where I feel like she should have spoken up when she didn't, but she learns from her mistakes and tries to better herself, tries to be more aware of what's going on around her, tries to recognize that everybody's a person, that their opinions have value, that just because they disagree with you, that doesn't mean you should ignore them or be defensive with them. She's very open-minded, and I just really love her character. She's just very strong. She has her opinions, she's very intellectual, but she also, like I said, is very open-minded. She's just got that wisdom, and I just love reading about her. She's probably my favorite thing about this book. In fact, my feelings towards this book are very interesting because I love her and I love everything that has to do with her in this story. But I really didn't love Helen very much, the younger sister, and most of the things that focus around her part of the story are things I really didn't like in this, or I just struggled with a lot more. So this is one that it's not quite a favorite of all time, but I've thought a lot about it, and mostly because of how amazing Margaret is and how I honestly would love to be like her. Like, I love that she lives in this society where she really absorbs all this information. She loves culture and music and loves being open-minded and exploring new ideas, and it's just so wonderful to read about. I just love her. Up next, we have Bilbo Baggins from The Hobbit. I love Bilbo so much, and I didn't realize how much until I read this book. This was actually a reread for me. However, my original read of this was actually my dad read it to me when I was younger, and I was just not in the right place to really appreciate it. I found it boring. I didn't really like it. However, now reading it now, I've really enjoyed it. Come to love the language that's used and the worlds that this is. And Bilbo himself is just such a strong character and does not get enough credit, in my opinion. Like, thinking about Frodo, I love Frodo too. I know a lot of people have issues with him, but he's really strong. Like, I think his fight is so psychological. It is very hard, especially the way this is written. It's very hard to understand exactly how strong of a character he is, exactly what he's going through, why he behaves the way he does, because it's all psychological journey for him. Like, yes, he's physically going on this journey, but there's a lot going on beneath the surface that, because it's not like first person narrative or anything like that, we just don't understand. And so I think a lot of people are like, he treats Sam so bad, but you know, he's literally dealing with this darkness that's constantly pressing on him all the time and trying to get in his head, and it's starting to a little bit, and I think it's hard for us to really understand that. And Bilbo has been holding on to this ring for 60 years, and he's just a good person. He's very strong, and I just really appreciate him as a character so much, and this reread really solidified that love for me. Up next, we have Agnes Gray from Agnes Gray by Anne Bronte. I just really related to Agnes a lot, just the way she saw the world, the way she thought about things, the way she saw herself. I found her to be a character that, even though she's very reserved and her family seems to believe that she's, you know, she's the baby of the family, she is just to be taken care of, she's a sweet little thing. She actually really wants a lot more independence than she has, especially in the beginning, and she really is searching for that self-discovery and self-attainment that she feels like she has been kept from because she's been treated as the baby of the family. And I really relate to that, not in the fact of being the baby of the family. I'm actually the oldest of my siblings, but I am very reserved. And I feel like a lot of people within my extended family, within like outside of my family, see that and they just kind of assume like, you know, she's sweet, she just really likes being with her family. And while I do, I really love being independent, and I really love not living at home and being able to earn my own living. And I'm not quite at that point yet. I'm in that in-between awkward young adult stage right now where I'm still slightly relying on my parents, but I'm also starting to get more independence, and that's something I really want for myself. And I really appreciate her introspection, and that's a way I live my life. I tend to think a lot and be very introspective in like every day. So anyway, I just really related to her in a lot of ways, and even her imperfections. Like I recognize those things in myself, and there are things I want to work on. So anyway, I really love Agnes as a character. I just feel like we'd be best friends, and I really think Anne Bronte and I would get along as well, because I think, I mean, it's hard to say, but I think that Agnes Gray really is pretty similar in the way she views the world and views herself to the way Anne Bronte did. And so I don't know if that sentence made sense, but I think you know what I mean. Anyway, so I feel like I'd get along with Anne Bronte. I'm actually reading a biography about the Bronte family over the next several months, starting in February. So we'll see if I continue to think that as I learn more about their families a whole. But anyway, love Agnes for sure. Up next we have Regan from The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton, and this is a book that I actually got rid of because it's one that I enjoyed but I didn't think I was going to ever reread for a variety of different reasons. However, I really liked Regan as a character. She was just very standout for me, and I think it's because I really am drawn to leaders who are very manipulative and cunning, but also in a very wise way. Like they're not going to be cunning and manipulative out of spite, and they're not going to do it in a cruel way. They're just really trying to, it's kind of like a diplomatic type thing. And I felt like Regan really had that quality. And if she hadn't allowed her fear and her self-doubt get in the way, I really think she probably would have made the best queen out of all the sisters, in my opinion. But I feel like she just let these fears get in the way, and these doubts about herself get in the way to the point where she wasn't able to move past them, and she really was so dependent on her husband and just really allowed herself to be a sidekick, basically, whereas she had the qualities that could have made her a great leader if she had been willing to push past those weaknesses. So I really liked her as a character. That's very much my own opinion. Other people might disagree, but I feel like definitely of the three, I feel like she had this good balance of just a strong diplomatic personality and some talents that enabled her to be a good leader and be able to work with other diplomats and be able to kind of manipulate them, but for the good of her kingdom. And I feel like it would have been very interesting to see her on the throne, but, you know, she had her failings that caused her to fall and lose that opportunity. So anyway, up next we have Lucy Gray from The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I know a lot of people didn't love this book. For me, I went into it just with curiosity as opposed to like expectations of any kind. I just wanted to know what it was. And I ended up enjoying it okay. I do feel like it was too long. I think that was my main complaint, was it was longer than it needed to be. If it had been shorter, a little more condensed, I think I would have liked it a lot more. But it was just, it dragged on a little bit, and the ending was a little bit confusing for me and felt a little rushed. But anyway, I really like Lucy Gray as a character. Like I said, with Regan, I really like cunning and people who can manipulate the system in a psychological way, and Lucy Gray definitely does that. She really brings that part of the games into full focus in this book, and I really love the way she does it. I think she's very clever, very free-spirited. I like that she wasn't exactly like Katniss. I like that it mixed it up a little bit, and she just had this great free spirit that I feel like was taken down by the Capitol, and it really helped also build up the world and helped me understand a little bit more of how the games became the way it was because of Lucy Gray, and how even Snow became who he became because of Lucy Gray. And I just found her to be a very fascinating character. This book in and of itself, not a favorite of the year, not a least favorite of the year either though. It was just kind of in the middle, but I did really like Lucy Gray. Up next we have John Loveday from The Trumpet Major by Thomas Hardy. He is the trumpet major of the title, and I just found him so sweet and genuine. I loved how genuine he was. He is one of the love interests in this book, and he just really cares about those he cares about. For example, there's obviously the romantic interest, but one of the other love interests for this female main character is actually his brother, and he's so willing to let his brother find love and fall in love and let this girl be with him so long as she wants to, and really is just so true in his love for both of them. Like, he just recognizes that he wants their joy more than he wants his own, and I just love that. I love it so much. He's very similar to Gabriel Oak in my opinion. However, in some ways I almost like him better just because we're able to see that relationship with his brother and also a relationship with his father. We're able to see how close they are, and it really makes it so much more impactful, the ending of this book so much more impactful because of those strong relationships. Now, I'm not going to give spoilers for what happens at the end, but let's just say it really had an impact on me. I'm not going to say whether it was good or bad, but it definitely had an impact on me because of John Loveday's character and just how wonderful and sweet and good he is. So yeah, John Loveday is definitely a new fictional crush of mine. Up next, we have Ragnar Daneskjöld from Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Now, this is definitely not a favorite book of the year. I think I gave it 3 stars. There were things I liked about it, things I didn't. But Ragnar Daneskjöld is one of the best characters ever, obviously this year, but like, he's probably like top 5, top 3 level. He's one of my favorites from this year because he's so cool. He's a philosophizing pirate who just is this charmer. He's so sweet, and he's also super intellectual, and he's just so cool. He's so cool. The moment I fell in love with him was the moment towards the end there's someone who they're trying to save, and no details obviously for spoiler purposes, but they're trying to save this person, and he freaking like busts through this window and starts taking all these guys out, and it was just the way it was described was so cool, and I was like, I just love this man so much. He's so cool. A lot of the other characters in this annoyed me, and honestly, he wasn't in it all that much. I wish he was in it more, but he's just so cool. I just love him so much, and I just want to marry him because he's just that awesome. So anyway, love him. Not much more I can say about him beyond the fact that he's just freaking cool. Yeah, and he's smart. Like, some of his speeches were my favorite because I feel like he got right to the point without overdoing it, because there was a lot of overdoing the thinking in this book, in my opinion, but I feel like he did it just enough to get the point across and looked real cool doing it. So anyway, love him so much, and the only reason I'm probably keeping this book, well, partly because I do want to continue to think about some of the things I've marked in here, but also because of him. Like, I would totally reread this for his sake. There's another character in here named Cheryl, I believe, who also was really interesting in a different way. She was just quiet, but she really had an impact on me in the story. But because I only wanted to go with one, it had to be Ragnar. So anyway. In a similar vein, we have Edmond Dantes from The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I love Edmond Dantes. I would marry him in a heartbeat. This is another fictional crush of mine. I feel like Ragnar, John Loveday, and the Count are just peak of the fictional crushes for me this year, although they're all pretty different. I mean, Ragnar and the Count are similar in some ways, but they're not. I feel like the Count is more of a gentlemanly version of Ragnar, if that makes sense, but They're just both so cunning. Edmund is just very intelligent and also very willing to recognize his own faults after a time. He has a while where he's just so passionate about his desire for revenge that it gets away from him a little bit, but he is just fascinating and so fun to watch. There were many times I laughed out loud in this book simply because of how intelligent and like how manipulative and how cunning and how perfectly timed some of his speeches are, and I just really, really love him. He's just fabulous. I loved this book so much. We'll talk about that more next video, but this was just great, and Edmond Dantes is just everything. The penultimate character on this list is Dustfinger from Inkheart by Cornelia Funke, and I really, really love Dustfinger. He is a great anti-hero who just really wants to do the right thing, but he's also in this situation where he's just trying to survive. He's just trying to get home to his family, and he does things that he regrets later and that you wish he wouldn't do because you know how selfish it is and how cowardly, but you also understand where he's coming from, that his life is hard, and I love how complex he is as a character, especially for a middle grade series. Like, this whole series is middle grade, but this character has so much depth to him, and the more I read about him, the more depth he has. And, you know, he seems so selfish at times, but then he does things that you're like, he just isn't as selfish as even he thinks he is. He's not as cowardly as even he thinks he is, and I just love reading about him. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful character. And last but certainly not least, we have Mrs. Hurdle from The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. Mrs. Hurdle is an American woman who is complicatedly engaged to another character in this book, and he's trying to get out of it, but she doesn't want him to, and cause a lot of drama, but she just is very blunt, and she's very open and willing to see things as they truly are and willing to admit things as they truly are, and I just loved her honesty. I loved how blunt she was, like I said, and she was fascinating to read about. She was one of my favorite characters to read about. Every time we got to a portion with her, I just got so excited because she just had the power to make me laugh, the power to make me cry, the power to make me nod voraciously because I'm like, she is right. She is right. Everybody listen to her. And I just really love what she added to this story and the dynamic she showed between this American, not just an American, but someone from the west side of America. She's from Oregon, California area. I think she spends some time in Texas. So she's very much the old west kind of a woman. And that means she's pretty different from the accepted London society that they had at this time. And I loved how that was portrayed, and how even though she was so different and there were things she did that weren't like appropriate, the author seems to almost be pushing the fact that what she is, even if it's not deemed appropriate in many ways, she's still the better person than many of these other characters because of how honest she is, and because she just takes the world as it is and recognizes its flaws and isn't afraid to admit it. And I really loved her and loved how she was portrayed in this. So that is it. Those are my favorite characters of 2020. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books, if you like these characters, if you don't like these characters, as well as some of your favorite characters of this year, as I would love to know, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!